How do you do? The Box Office Pulp Board feels it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We're about to unfold a cinematic commentary track, made by a group of men who sought to create a podcast after their own ravings, without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with three great mysteries of the internet: analysis, observation, and deconstruction. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel you'd not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to, well, we've warned you. Now, to pause and refresh. For your convenience, we have an attractive refreshment stand in the lobby, with buttered popcorn, golden good and hot from the popper, your favorite candies, wholesome and rich, plus delicious Dr. Pepper, so bright and bracing with a tang and tingle unmatched by any other beverage. Enjoy an ice-cold Dr. Pepper at our beverage stand right now, and then return to fully appreciate this bop and a movie commentary track. Enjoy.
You wanna play games, motherfucker?
You know who I don't like? Blue Falcon.
Well, that's unfortunate because he's appeared in a couple of the Scooby things.
I know. I actually mostly like him in Scooby-Doo, but I dislike the character.
He just seems like a dick.
Well, yeah. That is a plot point in Scoob, I guess.
Like, I like Dino Mutt.
You know who doesn't like Dino Mutt? Comedian Chris Rock.
I was going to say the cops because they shoot dogs, but yours works too.
He was in a movie called Brother Bear.
Was he? I almost bought that today. Are we talking the animated Disney one?
Yes.
Wow, I almost bought that today because the breaking news is Disney is signing over basically production of all of their physical media to Sony. So I'm terrified like all of those movies are just going to vanish now that the Disney Movie Club is being shuttered. Anyways, on that happy note, welcome to Box Office Pulp, your one-stop podcast for movies, madness, moxie, and tonight, we kind of spoiled it, it's Chris Rock and the rebirth of Saw again. We're back with part 9 in our Saw series, if you can believe it. This time covering Spiral from the Book of Saw. I'm your host, Cody. Joining me today for this bop in a movie are my co-host, Mike. Say hello, Mike.
Tell me Spiral isn't a direct sequel to CB4.
I haven't seen CB4, so I win through sheer ignorance.
Oh God, this is all what happened the next day.
MC Gusto, after putting Gusto into prison, think of this: we start this movie, Zeke is undercover. How did we end CB4? He was undercover, setting up Gusto. He entered the police force. This all makes sense.
I'm going to have to trust you on that because, once again, ignorance. But you keep going on that thesis. It sounds like you have multiple pages ready to go. And say hello to Jamie.
Cody.
Jamie, do you also have a conspiracy theory about Chris Rock's filmography that ties into this neatly?
Well, all I have is a request, which is before the end of this commentary, can you please recite the Genius lyrics for that 21 Savage song?
God. Well, isn't one of them, I took a number 2 with a rifle?
Yes.
What does that mean?
It means spiral, Cody.
I'm looking it up right now. It's got to be on Genius. Someone's going to annotate this for idiots like me. Where is that line? I'll find it later. I'll find it later. It turns out there's a lot of annotations, though, on this page, so we're going to have a lot to talk about.
Is there explanations for what the hell the song means?
I think so. I mean, all these links got to go somewhere.
They could have had a song performed by Tobin Bell play over those credits, and instead they went with that.
At least it wasn't Seether.
Oh, okay. So there is an annotation for, I took a number 2 with my rifle, parentheses, pussy. Genius annotation, Mr. Savage has to stay strapped at all times, even when taking a number 2, taking a shit.
Oh, we got to the bottom of that.
So
Mr. Savage.
That's how they quoted it. And that makes a lot more sense. I thought he was saying like his rifle shit, like physically shit. I'm like, I don't quite know what that means. Saying he has to poop with a gun near him at all times. Not as poetic, but it definitely makes more sense. So anyways, folks who also, like me, don't understand what's going on in the 21 Savage song, you have that to look forward to in our post-credits. So stick around. Now that we have that out of the way, I've been staring at my cocktail for this drink as it gets worse and worse smelling. So one in the chat, I just sent a picture of this guy to you, so you have an understanding of the thing I'm about to deal with.
Oh, dear God.
It looks, you remember the movie The Ruins?
So...
Okay, I don't like that you keep making cocktails that look like various bodily fluids, and I'm not going to elaborate on this one, but come on.
It's the Malort. It poisons all. Visually even. It's the smell, the taste, the look. It's bad on all the senses. I'm pretty sure if you touched it, you would just go cold and clammy. So folks, I probably shouldn't even tell you how to make this one, because I don't want people to actually do this. But I'm calling this... Well, I should back up. I do have a little intro here. You know how last time I said I was rebooting my Saw Drink series because Jigsaw was a revival of the series, and I was going to make a good version of the drink and a bad version of the drink? Didn't do that this time. Since this is a reboot of a reboot, we're back to just one awful cocktail. This one I call a Chicago breakfast for dinner. It is 2 ounces of bacon fat washed Malort, a half ounce of coffee liqueur, a half ounce of maple syrup, 1 egg white. As a note, these eggs have been in my fridge forever. They didn't smell funky or anything, so I'm hoping that egg white's okay. But I might be ingesting a rotten egg. I'm not sure. And 2 dashes of orange bitters. So to make this monstrosity, first you got to fat wash the Malort. This is actually pretty simple. I just fried up a pack of bacon. I ate the bacon. That was delicious. Poured off the grease into a mason jar. I poured in the Malort I was using. This time I only needed 2 ounces, so I just did the 2 ounces. Theoretically, if you want to balance the flavor more, you would use more Malort than that. But you're not going to do this, I hope, so I'm not going to tell you the right ratios. Once you have that all together, just seal the lid of the mason jar, let it come to like room temperature. Flip it upside down, then put it in your fridge, or your freezer overnight. That way, when all of the fat freezes together, it's on the bottom of the jar, and when you open it, your liquid will pop right out. You don't have to worry about like poking holes in this little fatberg inside the mason jar to get your Malort out. That's all there is to it. You should end up in this process with a Malort that has a bacon aftertaste to it. Most of the time, people do this for stuff like bourbon. Make a bourbon Malort or a peanut Malort. That'd probably be not Malort. I got that in my head. A bourbon, like a peanut bourbon or a bacon bourbon. That'd be a lot better. We're not doing that. As for the rest of the drink, this one I made fancy by running a lime around the lip of a coupe glass, and then I rolled that glass in bacon salt. It smells awful. The bacon salt smells goddamn awful. So I don't think I spent that money wisely. That was like $6 I'm not getting back. Take the rest of the ingredients I mentioned before, throw those in a mixing tin, dry shake that really hard for about 30 seconds, open it up, throw some ice in there, shake again. To just kind of agitate that foam, get a nice puffier foam when you pour it out. And that's really all there is to it. One Chicago breakfast for dinner that I now have to try. Here, bottom up. All right, I've tried the rim. It's very salty, incredibly salty, a little smoky. So it's got that bacon going to it, but it's just like a salt lick. Now for the alcohol. That was a weird one. The first second, I thought, this doesn't even taste like Malort. This tastes like coffee, and it's pretty smooth. And then the Malort took over. I feel like I just drank rancid bacon and took a shot of black coffee. It's not good.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you think anybody masturbates to this, like ASMR?
I spent like $5 for that pack of bacon, and I spent $6 for the bacon salt. I would hope, for the money I put into this, someone's getting off, because it's not me.
I hate this.
Yeah. No, this is bad. Every part of it's bad.
Yeah. I dislike
this. I hate
this.
more that you put the idea of someone jacking off to me drinking the world's worst cocktail, and now I have to finish the world's worst cocktail. That image in my mind.
That way they build back up. You have to give the people what they want, Cody.
Hold on.
They want.
I'm gonna take another sip of this. Let's see if it gets better on take 2. Oh no, same thing. The first few seconds, so you get like the maple syrup and all the other flavors is like, this is okay. And then your tongue's like, JK, there's Malort under all this bullshit.
Question, Cody. Do you still have any of the bacon fat left leftover?
No, I put all the bacon fat into the mason jar with the malort.
I'm just curious. Does the bacon fat now taste like malort?
Oh yeah, it should. Like, I haven't tried it because I would have had to take like the hockey puck of fat out of the mason jar and then like take a bite out of this solid ring of fat. And I didn't do that because I'm not
science, Cody. For science. Next time. I just want to know, with the way that malort has overpowered and destroyed the taste of everything, is it possible bacon fat now tastes like 100% malort?
I wouldn't say 100%, but it probably tastes a lot like malort.
Well, you know what to marinate that bacon in.
This is bad. Like, the aftertaste is honestly not good at all. This is not what I'm looking forward to drinking the rest of. Luckily, I have 2 little shooter bottles of I don't even know what it is, like silver coconut rum as backup tonight. So that'll come in handy later.
I just want you all to know that don't worry, I did turn the recorder.
Thank God, Mike. I
had a freak out again. I had a freak out again only about 5 minutes ago that I didn't turn the recorder on. So
if my malort suffering is for naught, I would get up and quit the show.
Box office pulp drinking game. Take a shot every time Cody has to remake the drink of the commentator. The only contestant is Cody.
I left just enough malort literally for Saw 10. So I really cannot remake this one, even if I really wanted to, without buying another bottle of malort.
Well, you're going to have to, because they're making these movies again.
No. For all we know, I'll be dead before Saw 11 comes out, or Saw 11 will get canceled for a tax write-off. Who knows? I'm not counting it.
We don't know what the Ruskies have planned for the next 6 months, Mike.
It's exactly. All right. Well, with the taste of that cocktail in mind, who's ready for some Spiral?
I am.
Whee!
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da us.
Yay, friendship.
Logo.
Anyway, we have the movie queued up. There is only one version of Spiral, so don't worry about tracking anything else down. It's kind of like Jigsaw in that way. I know it's currently on Hulu, but it's kind of comes and goes from a few different sources. But it is very often on Hulu, randomly. I'm not sure why. So if we are all ready, I will count to 3. After I say 3, let's all press play.
Yeah, let's do it.
1, 2, 3.
Spiralize me, Captain.
Whoa, 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 whoa. That was the last time they let Junji Ito direct a Captain Crunch commercial.
I was going through space for the Lionsgate logo.
I hate this Lionsgate logo.
Boo, tasteful Lionsgate logo.
At least it's shorter, I guess. But,
all right, let's get through some of our movie fun facts here. This was directed by Darren Lynn Bousman. He's back. The last time we saw Bousman, he was directing Saw 4, so it's been a little while. This entry was written by Josh Stolberg and Peter Goldfinger. They are returning from Jigsaw. Our cast, and this one's pretty different because for once we don't have like Tobin Bell mentioned at all. We've got Chris Rock as Zeke Banks. We've got Fireworks. Wow, which is actually pretty weird for a Saw movie. It does its job of setting the tone right away.
It does keep the general aesthetic of the original Saw movies. I mean, like literally, like first 3.
Like the glow stick in the toilet.
Yeah, like starting with the lights turning on and darkness and stuff. So at least there's that.
I do want to say one thing real quick. Am I the only one who thought that we were in New Orleans for like the first 5 minutes?
Yes.
With this old-timey detective man.
Jigsaw, port call of New Orleans.
I'm more distracted if I can get away from the movie facts for a second, but still talk about casting. After the massive success of Letterkenny, it's just very funny in retrospect that, I'm going to butcher his last name, Dan Petronijuk, that's a way to say it, a.k.a. McMurray, that piece of shit, is the first thing we see in the film. He's our first character we meet. I just enjoy that you're making a Canadian film. Let's just grab some of the Letterkenny guys. Some of them are going to hit eventually.
Just imagining the play me scene later on, but it's just the killer explaining the rules for farting.
I mean, this intro is fascinating, though, because it does the mission statement we're trying to get with Jigsaw and Saw 7 of, there's a larger world. We don't have to be in these shitty warehouses all the time. much more effectively communicated than those movies. Of course, we immediately go into a subway and it turns back into more normal kind of Saw territory. But just seeing thousands of people walk around, the fireworks, which apparently that was mostly guerrilla filmmaking. They showed up with permits. The permits weren't actually good, or there was confusion over if they were good. So they were forced to steal all those shots as they were being kicked out of the festival.
That's how you know Bousman's behind the wheel, baby. You don't know who's getting arrested.
Not a mannequin.
God, that is a swole mannequin.
They make them that way sometimes, just to make you feel worse about yourself.
Pig mask.
Pig mask. Everyone appreciate the pig mask, because in Saw 10, they don't look as good. Apparently, the Dawn Post mask that they'd been using for the pig masks stopped being produced. And apparently, they just didn't have a shit ton of pig masks in stock somewhere, so they just don't look as good for whatever mask they use after this. And right into the tongue trap. Apparently, this was a big point of contention between the producers and Bousman, because Bousman felt his traps need to be realistic, and the script, as called for, wanted fish hooks in the guy's tongue. And Bousman said the fish hooks would never do the right amount of damage. It's not realistic. It's got to be like this weird clamp thing that's stapled through the guy's tongue, which caused delays, and I guess it was a fight back and forth. They're like, just do what the fucking script says, and he said no.
I think this is so much better, though. It's such a great visual.
Much. Yeah.
Just that tongue sticking out.
And thank God we got someone like Bousman back who goes, can the traps make sense?
No more rooms filled with lawnmowers.
Also, this interested me because I never really noticed it before until the commentary pointed it out. Most of this guy's mouth has to have special effects applied to it, just to remove some of the rigging around the prosthetic tongue and all of that, for his face to make the right emotions that they need to for him to interact with the trap correctly. You don't really notice it. Obviously, it's filmed kind of a stylistic way where we're not focusing dead on his face the whole time, but it's an impressive use of CGI to get around basically removing the lower half of his face and replacing it with a digital model at times. As long as you're talking about Bousman returning. Oh, go ahead, Jimmy.
I was going to say, I've seen that. This is my third time seeing this, and this still gives me the willies.
It's so gnarly, yeah. Tongue stuff just always freaks me out.
Yeah, so in that last shot, you can see his chin's a little further down. I think that was CGI to extend his face a little bit and make it look more natural. Anyways, though, going back to Bousman as a creator, watching Jigsaw in this back-to-back, you really realize how much he brings to the movies. There's so much extra style and tension to the traps compared to Jigsaw. And I'm sure most people don't necessarily love some of the stylistic flourishes. There's been all the jokes about it being MTV style, but it works so much better. It really makes this seem intense compared to just seeing some of the traps go off.
It really has a feeling to it. It feels sweaty and dirty and
That was one of the neat things too. I found during the making of special on the disc was to get the heat wave look. The cinematographer had to go through and apply a bunch of different gels to the lens. A lot of times he's just putting Vaseline over everything to give it a nice hazy look. So there's all sorts of little tricks in here to kind of dirty up the image slightly and make it look just extra sweaty and grimy.
That's the wild thing about watching this immediately after Jigsaw, is it seems almost made to order based on our complaints about Jigsaw's directing. I mean, this is the hypothetical movie we were describing, which had the slickness of a modern thriller, but with the drive-in grime that you want from a Saw movie.
Yeah.
I have some issues with this film, but directing-wise, 10 out of 10, no notes.
I love the style of it, yeah. The downside for me is what you're getting in this scene, though. They're allowing Chris Rock to basically just go in and write his own monologues for pieces. This is the first time they have a superstar in the cast, and he's allowed to basically bend the movie to his will. He told them over and over, hey, you just write a Saw movie, and I'll add the funny bits. And you end up with these long moments of him discussing Forrest Gump that do nothing for me.
I agree with all of his thoughts on Forrest Gump.
Honestly, that goes into my biggest complaint with the film is just there's so many scenes like that of dialogue that doesn't quite flow with what's around it. And my first thought, like watching this movie throughout it, was I am watching a movie that was severely cut down in the editing room. And listening to the commentary, Bousman pretty much says the same thing. Like, not just in terms of like directorial flourishes that were toned down, but just a lot of plot stuff. There's a character who disappears from the movie, but just because his death scene was too gnarly, and that stuff is in every Saw movie, unfortunately. But this is the one that seems to suffer the most from it. This is the first time I've come away from a Saw feeling like, oh, this actually did need to be at least 2 hours, if not longer.
The movie itself is what, an hour 33? It could have used definitely another 10, 15-ish minutes. It's hard to say without seeing like other cuts of the film how much more could and should go back in, but it does feel too short. There's parts that are off-putting because it just feels like the flow switches halfway through the scene.
Yeah, because
my feeling on the length. My feeling on the length is I didn't have like issues, those kind of issues like with the movie as it stands now. But the plot and the concepts of the film needed that extra breathing room to really work themselves in. Like this is a concept and idea that is worthy of 2 hours minimum, and really needs that in order to be properly fleshed out.
It's wild.
This is weird. Does anyone else just think this is such a weird fucking insert here? Like what? The Jamaican impression, me no want no partner.
This is honestly the only Rock like joke aside that doesn't work for me, only because it's just very random. Other than that, I actually really like the writing of this scene because of how economical it is and how much they're able to like set up. They're able to set up their relationship and how they interact. A lot of needed world building and information is thrown at you, but feels like things they would be saying in this particular conversation. And I appreciate that.
I feel a little beat over the head with the exposition here. Like they're trying to cram it in so hard. Even this part here where she mentions like, it's wild out there. Let me explain that we've got rolling blackouts. I'm like, you could probably sprinkle in like the heat wave stuff where people would pick up on it without a character explicitly stating it to a guy who is currently sweating. Zeke having to explain that he got shot in the back. It's been 12 years. He can't trust people. It's weird that we have to play so much catch up in one scene and the whole movie. It's not like they forget about these concepts. They really hammer them throughout the film. So to me, it's like overwhelming. It's like, okay, we get it. You got to get all these points out, but man, it just feels like a mouthful.
That's one of those things I think is just as exacerbated by it just being every scene being just a little tighter than it needs to be.
Alone. The Batman style.
One thing that I love that this movie did manage to hone in on, which is something that was very over my head my first go around with the Saw series, that I've come to really appreciate over the course of these movies. The particular 90s film noir parallel universe that specifically the cop characters are living in each of these films. And Spiral feels like it's almost a love letter to that.
Yeah.
I mean, as they're talking about the movie, it's a little funny because in the making of featurettes, they keep saying, we didn't want to make a Saw film. And then when they're talking about Chris Rock coming in, but we didn't want to make a Chris Rock film. We want to make a Saw film. And then they all kind of came to the middle by agreeing, we actually wanted to make a 7. We just wanted to make 7. And have it be set in the Saw universe with Chris Rock.
Something they've been dancing around since the first movie. We've seen other drafts of Saw sequels try to go back to that well. I'm glad that for the sake of the series, they got it all out of their system with this one. As one thing I've definitely felt over these movies is Saw, for the good of the series, probably needs to let go of its police characters just because of how much content we've got from them over the years. I really think that's done to death at this point. I kind of like how this movie almost functions as a send-off to that aspect of the series.
It at least added a needed plot element in regards to it, instead of it just being like cops fumbling around, but they're not particularly important, yet they're the main characters.
Mm-hmm. We're watching The Abominable Dr. Phibes.
Yeah, and then, Hoffman, obviously, but...
So this little bit here feels super awkward to me after finding out that Chris Rock was going through an actual divorce while filming this, and then he wrote the scene. It's like, oh no, how much is being projected into the character?
Therapy.
Oh boy, I can't tell if this is dirty laundry being aired, if it's character work. Either way, it just doesn't feel like a window I want to look through.
There's something I like about Zeke in these scenes where he is being like so over the top asshole, but it's kind of this like, at least my reading of it was he's trying to like get rid of this guy by being aggressively unpleasant. Particularly, like, he finds out he's married, so he's just going to be he's just suddenly very unpleasant about marriage.
Well, it's something that dawns on you after the credits roll when you look back at their relationship that, oh, we're doing an entire reversal of Jigsaw philosophy. The dude who's telling you nothing matters, the world is shit, people are shit, is technically the hero of the film. The squeaky clean all-American guy is like the killer, which, I mean, on the surface, yeah, it's a little bit trite as far as these types of movies go, and this film does not do a particularly good job of hiding where it's going in the third act, but I feel like in specifically the Saw universe, that's a really interesting thing to play with.
Yeah, because the Saw universe works with really like pulpy, larger archetypes of real archetypes. And I really enjoyed Zeke being this character who was moralistically the leading character we usually see. The person almost like Jigsaw would want people to act like. But the world being grimy and horrible and him trying to be a moralistic person in the Saw universe has pretty much like eroded him into like this very nihilistic view, despite the fact he holds on to those morals.
Well, it really changes the mode of what we're doing with a Saw film, because traditionally the protagonist in a Saw film is being tested the whole time. They're going through traps. They have to make the sacrifices. They're going through pain. They have to decide if they should save lives or not. In this one, we find out that Zeke is essentially already chosen. He's supposed to be the next apprentice. He's like adjacent to the traps, but it's not like he's at risk of being put in most of them. The closest he gets is when he has to decide if he's going to step in front of the broken bottles or not later on.
Yeah.
So it from a dramatic point, it basically flops how we're trained to expect a Saw movie to work. And your mileage is going to vary on if you like that as a concept or not. Dramatically, it feels a little weird because it means like our detective ends up not being in that much danger throughout the film. And
but you kind of don't notice, which I think
it's more of on a repeat thing. It's more glaring. As it goes, you don't know what that twist is, so you don't know that he's kind of safe from everything. But because it kind of violates the normal trap structure, he's also not in visual danger the same way. So again, that can vary. If you want something new, that's probably good. If you like Saw's format, it's going to be a little frustrating.
It helps that there's very little traps in the film.
Yeah. And I mean, one even gets cut out. And one of the supposed trap deaths isn't even a trap death. It's just like the character being skinned. Like it's just a murder the way it's set up.
Just some unrelated guy flayed him.
It's something that doesn't quite work, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that like sold me on this movie just whenever the first trailer dropped. Just the idea of, okay, we've seen the God's eye view of all of these events in so many movies. What if we had a movie that was just the Tap perspective? Like, what would it be like that day being a cop in that city when the Jigsaw murders are happening? With those traps just being things you mostly see like after the fact or get brief flashes of.
To go back to the kind of subversion point I was making about the plot, in a normal Saw movie, right, as he's going through and doing his diatribe about like his wife cheating on him, that would be like the area where he'd lace in why the protagonist is going to have issues later. Like he's going to be tested on those specific problems he brings up. And here it's just Chris Rock talking, you know, if you're expecting that to factor in later on to how his character will be tested, you're going to be disappointed. Which I think is my issue with it. It's not directly tied to the arc of the character so much like it would be in a different Saw movie where it's like, oh, sorry, honey, I can't come to dinner tonight. I have to go stare at corpses for 5 hours.
It's where if the movie was longer, because I think there is an interesting arc for Zeke where the game for Zeke is, I mean, to the killer, it's training him essentially because to what is the spiral killer, I guess is the only thing he's called, right? Because they didn't
he was almost the old,
yeah,
which is a much cooler name.
One thing, sorry to cut you off though, but this is such an interesting line to me. Do you think when they say another copycat, they're trying to imply that the spiral killer from Jigsaw was caught, or are they just going off of we caught like the guy with his head lasered off, that's our killer?
He was framed for those killings, I believe. So
he was framed for it, but he also died in a laser trap. So that kind of opens up the possibility that he just killed himself with his own laser trap.
I think technically Hoffman was considered a copycat, even though he was an apprentice.
Because I mean, they're never going to revisit Jigsaw, I don't think. Who knows? Maybe they'll surprise with 11. But here's my thing. Maybe that's how they're writing off that series. Like Logan immediately got caught like as soon as that movie is done because his trap was stupid.
Well, the thing too, I think, which is what's the fun of this, what this movie plays with, is the idea that Jigsaw is like a virus that was released into the world. So for all we know, copycats actually pop up way more often.
All the time.
People who are unrelated to Jigsaw, which I think is more interesting. Like the whole...
Yeah, there's no real tie. This is just a guy who thought Jigsaw was neat.
Yeah, and that's like, to me, that's fascinating. That's true, like, Jigsaw religion stuff. The whole, like,
to get
apprentices around all that doesn't work as well.
Yeah, well, to get into the title of the movie, From the Book of Saw has its religious connotations, right? It sounds like a Bible chapter. And the fact that Jigsaw has so many disciples over the movies, I think this definitely ties into that. So they were always trying to push the idea that his ideas would be popular enough that they were bubbling into a counterculture movement in this universe. So it is, from a spin-off point, a great idea. Like, you could do a lot with that, and you could have stuff that's not anywhere related to the original Saw movies. They could just say, hey, this guy read about some true crime and thought, that makes sense, let me do it myself. And that gives you the freedom to get away from traps. If you don't want to do it that way, you could change the philosophy. You could change so much and just basically boil it down to the general concept of morally compromised killer tries to test other people. Mostly, I want this to devolve into Saw Hawaii 5-0. It's just Jigsaw in Hawaii.
As Stolberg has said, if Lionsgate told him to write a Saw universe movie, he would be on that shit tomorrow. So there's always hope.
I want to get more into this topic later because, Jamie, you were doing some research on a Saw TV show that I want to get into. But I got to get through my movie facts before we get even further into the movie. We're already 21 minutes through. Okay, let's speed around. Our cinematography is by Jordan Oram. This was Orum's first director of photography job on a feature film. He'd previously worked on music videos, and specifically he worked on a Drake music video, I think it was for God's Plan, that caught Bousman's eye and got the job based off of that work. Our music is once again by Charlie Clouser. Fun fact, this is one of I think the only time he's appeared on a Saw commentary track. They finally got him for one of the commentaries. Yay! Our editing is by Dev Singh. Singh worked on a decent number of TV shows, but also edited Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City the same year as this film, which I only mention because Mike hates that one and I like it, which is the opposite of how we feel on Spiral. Our release date was May 14th, 2021, which is really important. First, because this is the first Saw film that wasn't aiming for October, and that's only half true. They were aiming for October, but a global pandemic basically stopped the movie from coming out. John Wick 4 left its May release date in 2021 as theaters started to reopen, and Spiral jumped into that gap. There was a chance this movie was actually going to go to a streaming service. Lionsgate was getting pretty itchy about this movie. It cost a decent amount of cash, and they didn't want it just sitting around perpetually, but the producers really fought for a theatrical experience. This could have been the start to a direct-to-video series of Saw movies like it was Hellraiser. So we are pretty fortunate they stood their ground and fought for this to go to theaters.
That was a brief period of movie fandom that's going to be burned in our brains forever. Just sitting around wondering, when will Candyman, Spiral, and No Time to Die be released?
God. And part of why they were looking at putting this to a streaming service instead of holding on to it was we had a much larger budget this time around, $20 million, which compared to the other Saw movies were all around like 10 to 13, 14-ish, pretty low. Granted, there was a long gap between this and the other Saw films, but I think that goes along when you have Samuel L. Jackson and Chris Rock in your cast. You're going to be spending more money for big names, and the production value's got to jump up to meet their demands as well. So they needed that money back, and saying, okay, we're going to hold on to this movie for like 3 years isn't really an appealing option to anyone. Unfortunately, since this came out as theaters were just starting to open again, I don't think people felt comfortable returning to theaters. The word of mouth wasn't fantastic on the film either, and the box office was shockingly low. It made $40.6 million worldwide on a $20 million budget. Even like the really bad Saw films made, closer to 100 million worldwide. So that kind of killed the Spiral book, right there. But it's extenuating circumstances. I'll make excuses for this because that's a COVID thing more so than the movie itself.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So we mentioned before how scenes feel chopped. The worst example in the movie is this scene here. Chris Rock meets Samuel L. Jackson, and halfway through their conversation, Samuel L. Jackson just basically stands up and says, well, I'm going to leave. We should get dinner. And it just feels like the conversational thread is missing several pages of dialogue.
Yeah.
Which is so frustrating because you really need to buy the relationship between these two dudes for the rest of the movie to pay off. Not just the finale, but just everything.
It all hinges here
on. And if it weren't for the fact that this is Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson in this scene, I would know nothing about these two men other than father and son that don't get along.
It stinks because they separate these characters for most of the movie too, right? There's some flashback bits between them, but this is their big scene together outside of the ending, and it's setting up all the movie. So to cut it down, besides that, it's Samuel L. Jackson. No one in the theater is going to be happy for less Samuel L. Jackson. So it stinks that they had to cut it down, I'm assuming for pacing reasons or maybe just get it under a certain runtime, but
it's Saw, two dudes in a room. You should be owning this shit.
Right, that's the drama that's going to power the movie. So this particular scene really gets under my skin. I could forgive a lot of the other bits, but this is the one that really, really bothers me.
Jackson is delightful, though.
I like him explaining that he'll basically be in any movie if he gets a cool death scene. Like, that's fun. I like the idea that you can be enough of a superstar to pick your projects based on, like, does the movie have a cool title like Snakes on a Plane? Or Do I get killed in some sort of giant marionette trap? Sign me up.
The commentary, Bousman tells a great story about his first day of working with Samuel L. Jackson and him running him through what was going to happen in the scene, and Jackson going, nah. And Bousman's like, okay, what do you mean? No, I'm not doing any of that. I'm just going to sit down for the entire scene. And it wasn't until later on during the day that Bousman was told by somebody else, oh, Sam does that to every director. He's checking to see if you have a backbone.
So he then had to go develop one quickly between scenes.
And Bousman is such an unassuming, like, nerdy, middle-aged dude who, throughout his career, has just, from context clues I've picked up, has never quite managed to figure out the whole talking to someone with more clout than him thing. So I can only imagine the absolute terror as he's walking up to Samuel L. Jackson thinking, I have to be tough in front of Mace Windu.
Gotta do it. This scene here frustrates me because it's such, like, in theaters, basically, I'm like, oh, okay, he's the killer as soon as he borrows Chris's phone, because that's a move we've seen before. Also, it's followed up by, like, the weird dated, oh, don't drain the batteries watching Twilight joke. Like, that was the best joke we could come up with there to, like, give him a zinger. Okay.
It's weird hearing modern movies at the time referenced in a Saw film.
I mean, even then, when did Twilight come out?
Twilight's evergreen. We're getting a series soon. We want to or not.
There's money to be made from Twilight. They can definitely go back to that well. Yeah, Twilight came out in 2008. So to go back and reference that is a little weird considering that was 2021 to 2008. It's a pretty big gap.
That's the real reason Zeke's father is targeted.
But yeah, the phone thing, I get they're trying to play fair, and it's a hard balance because viewers in a Saw film are all going as detectives. They're trying to guess that twist as soon as they can. Yeah. You can't even help it at this point. That's just what's going to happen. And if there wasn't a twist, people would freak out. So they've got a twist set up. They do a twist. They unfortunately, I think, make it very, very obvious what the twist is going to be.
That's why they're being obvious with Jackson. The phone thing didn't really blip on my radar when I was watching. Plenty of other things did.
Yeah, the phone thing was the first one where I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure I have this all nailed down. I think I know what's going on here. Which is rare because normally I'm pretty oblivious to mysteries.
Well, the problem is just by like process of elimination, you're gonna suspect the squeaky clean partner. And they try to knock Shank off of your radar by killing him, but they do it in such a thoughtless manner that it just doubles down on how much you suspect him. With him flexing his arm like Shia LaBeouf and Transformers.
I didn't even notice the tattoo until they flashed back to it. That's the sad part.
Yeah, well, they said it was really difficult to film the tattoo because it's on his inner arm and it's just not natural for you to hold it out in a way where people would read it while you're acting. So they had to like do retakes of him in the car and find a reason for him to like show the arm off.
Put it on the forearm, not the inner arm.
Yeah, I think at that point it was too late. Like they didn't realize their mistake until like, oh fuck, we don't see this in any of the scenes. We thought this would be like out there.
It's one of those things where just having Shank there the entire movie so that it's super shocking whenever you've just seen him a few scenes earlier and he's the one in that building. Taking him out of the movie, you're just waiting for the clock to run down. Okay, when is there a reveal with Shank? Even if he's not the killer, something's going on. You wouldn't just kill him off screen like that in something that's not even a trap.
Yeah, it's not a trap. That was also one of the big things. It just didn't jive. It didn't feel right. The whole tattoo thing. They had him there. You would have, because honestly, there's really no good way at this point with the Saw series to try to fool people. You can throw in as many red herrings as you want, but everyone's going to be a red herring in the audience mind. So just have them there the whole time.
Yeah. Especially if he's supposed to be testing Chris Rock, it would make sense for him to be right there next to him, kind of playing along with things and taking the voyeurism aspect of the Saw movies to a whole new level where he's not playing dead in the room. He's literally your partner. He's next to you. I think that would have been a fun way to amp that up.
Yeah, I think you can get away with a twist like that not being a reveal if you present it as a revelation that unfolds. And then you've won twice. You get away with, having a plot twist at the end that you don't have to spend the entire movie cheating about. And also you get the dawning horror of the audience realizing that the characters are in a lot more danger than the characters realize. You can get a lot of tension and dramatic irony out of the audience knowing that Shank is the killer before the characters do without actually tipping your cap to it narratively.
Yeah, it was a misstep.
Also, I mean, this is maybe a personal preference thing or hindsight thing, but if you're going to bring Chris Rock as the new face of your franchise, wouldn't it be fascinating to literally make him the face of the franchise, like him being the next Jigsaw? Maybe that's the big twist, where instead of just protagonist, he actually accepts that offer. Or they go full Saw, and it turns out him and Shank had been working behind the scenes together. You would have to restructure the entire movie.
I have to wonder if that was ever on the table when they were hashing that out with Rock.
Well, I wonder part of it, too, is it'd be tough to make him the new face of the franchise due to his desirability as a star. They had a hard time filming this because they had to play with his schedule. Even though he's the one who approached the studio and said, I want to make a Saw movie, they almost didn't make it because they were told, hey, Rock has like these dates to film, and if it doesn't happen, it's going to be like 2 years because he's locked up on other things.
Getting him for Fargo was a goddamn miracle of scheduling.
Yeah, so trying to think of like the normal Saw method of, hey, we want to make one of these like every year, and it's Chris Rock who's like, I am scheduled for the next 3, would make it almost impossible.
Yeah,
sequels.
Well, I think Rock was also very, he wanted to be kind of like in the traps and things like that overall. Like, you want to be part of the plot machinations. And I think making Rock a Jigsaw-like villain, or really any villain, I don't think works. I think you have a hard time doing that with a lot of kind of like big pop culture actors in general. But I think when you're taking somebody like Chris Rock, there's some sort of inherent, quite frankly, hilarity if he's going to be like a big arch villain that I just kind of think cancels things out. And I think people involved in this are and Brock himself is probably smart enough to know that.
It's a bit Eddie Murphy as Candyman.
Yeah. Or Ben Affleck as Batman, the ultimate evil.
I do love that Rock's elevator pitch that he gave to Lionsgate was just, imagine me in a saw trap. And it's me. What would Chris Rock do in a saw trap? Because I like that means that Chris Rock views himself the way America views Chris Rock.
The idea of Chris Rock saying, if I was in Saw, I would never cut my leg off. I would outsmart the trap is probably something that most movie fans do. Like, I wouldn't do what the characters did. But it also speaks to like the ego of the movie star being like, me, I'm too important to have to cut a leg off. I would never have to do something like that. Which is kind of the poison at the center of this movie to me. There's a little bit of ego there that I think kind of taints some of the proceedings of the film. And when we got to the part in the theater, you know, like when he gets the saw and he throws it away and uncuffs himself, I was just rolling my eyes. Like that's a cheat.
Really I did not like that.
I really rolled my eyes in theaters. That turned me really against the movie in theaters. I fucking hated it.
No. Don't mind it at all. Didn't really thought about it.
I don't think it was necessary for Zeke to be full on in a trap in this movie. I do think it's a little bullshit. He doesn't shed a little bit of blood.
I mean, they get him with the glass stuff.
A little bit, yeah. Well, Like I said, to Shank, he's perfect. Like, he's the whole reason he's kind of doing this. So he doesn't really want to hurt him. He hurts him, like, psychologically. Like, Zeke goes through the fucking ringer and is pretty much beaten down, which is kind of like the point. It's supposed to make him, like, kind of susceptible to the offer at the end.
Part of my difficulty here is trying to determine what are the moral trappings of Shank, because we have him say, "Hey, you're the good cop in this city. Everyone else is shit, and I want you to join me to rat out the bad cops." But then we also see him directly with Zeke, just break into the drug dealer's house without a warrant, break his leg, torture him a little bit to get some information. So he doesn't really even play by actual laws. So it's trying to determine what his levels are, what he thinks is acceptable for a cop, like what a good cop is to Shank.
And apparently a lot of that extended motivation and philosophy was filmed. It's just on the cutting room floor. I mean, the reveal scene at the end was supposed to go on for a really long time. And I think that's one of the... Shank in general is just one of the victims of how quickly this movie has to zip around and then get the hell out of there at the end. And it's frustrating because there is a character Bible for this character. Like, if they had done a follow-up to this, there was an entire backstory and motivation for Shank. Like, we might have had something really special on our hands with this character if there had been an immediate follow-up, but
yeah,
it's just, but what's on the screen is just a little promise of what there could be.
How do we, I want to talk about that goddamn puppet. How do we feel about not only the pig puppet, but the voice they have used for the Saw recordings?
That's definitely two conversations.
Okay. I would definitely say the same, because I think the puppet is a great touch.
Puppet's great.
Puppet's great. Hate the voice.
I don't think anybody likes the voice.
But at the same time, I don't know what else they could do other than just use
I 100% agree. Don't do Jigsaw's voice.
You can't.
Don't do the ghost face thing of just there's a voice changer that makes him sound like Jigsaw. You can't do that. Get away from it.
And I get what they're going for, too, because it's kind of like what you would see now if you go to TikTok and you watch a video. They have all these auto-gen voices that'll read your script in kind of these emotionless, anyone could have posted this way. So in film, it works for a guy who's trying to stay anonymous and hide his tracks, but it just doesn't sound good. And I miss having some emotion underneath these proclamations of judgment.
Yeah, because the speeches are good, but they kind of go a little bit too fast because they're the kind of auto voice, which always tends to read text like super quickly. I'm fascinated that Bousman like played around with like it being a child's voice.
I would have loved to have heard that. Yeah,
I think that would have been cool because I think that would have tied in really nicely to the fact that this is a killer who was kind of born during an event from his childhood, so he's still kind of a kid taking revenge. That would have been very interesting and probably very creepy. They could have played around with maybe text on a screen, but there's so much of it that's making the audience read a lot, so that probably wouldn't have worked. But definitely the really only thing about this movie that I really generally hurts my enjoyment of it, and there's very little, is the fucking voice, which is just not good. You kind of get used to it, but it's not good.
It's very frustrating whenever you're trying so hard, so deliberately to distance yourself from the main series and stake out your own identity, your own like new chapter in this franchise, and you cannot come up with a distinctive voice. In a franchise like Saw, that's Jason without his mask. You failed the first test.
Imagine if you tried to reboot Scream, like you mentioned before. If you did Scream and you wanted a new voice for the killer, like how difficult that would be to ever land on something that, one, works, isn't too close to the original, and allows viewers to supplant the original in their mind. Like, I don't think you could do it. But if you don't include it, you're eliminating one of the essential parts of Scream. So you're kind of fucked no matter which direction you go.
Yeah.
So I love this finger trap.
So good.
And it's a shame. I'm amazed they did not release an unrated cut or include the full trap on the special features, because it's not like you could include this trap in a future movie. They already showed you the gist of it. They can't recycle it. So let us see all that effects work. Because apparently in the original version of this, the MPA really fought them. They went on for several minutes and they showed each one of the fingers being broken and ripped apart. And they had to cut, I think they estimate something like 70% of the trap really out to make it work in the rating guide. So all that footage is out there somewhere. I don't understand why that's just not a special feature on an otherwise loaded DVD.
I don't understand how we got, like, the Saw 7 got an unrated cut that's 11 seconds longer. But, I mean, I don't think they really cut anything out of Jigsaw, at least. But this was cut down violence-wise.
Yeah, I mean,
and
like
only
said,
one thing really by choice. Yeah, I mean, the one mean-spirited trap was apparently like that was just a choice they made creatively.
Did they ever explain what that trap was going to be that they had to totally cut?
They stumble. It's Jackson stumbles across a body at the end, and it's like a specific like gnarly effect, but they felt that it was just too brutal, and they cut it out.
It's a shame because, like, I'm not a gore hound by any respect, especially when it comes to like the Saw traps. But these are such interesting ideas for dismemberment this time around. This is the first Saw movie I feel like is shortchanged by not going harder with the violence. Especially since with so much of the traps cut out, it kind of feels like they just come and go.
Yeah. And the ordering of them, where they kind of act as flashbacks, where some of the traps are supposedly off screen, bothers me. I get their intent, but the ordering of them feels so out of formula that I'm uncomfortable. Not in the way they want, where I'm like on the edge of my seat. I'm more like, hey, there's a pattern. What happened to the pattern? We've watched like 8 of these things. Also, I can't believe I never thought of this before. I should only be drinking the Malort drink while a trap is happening. I should be suffering with the victims.
I'm glad you finally figured that out when we're on like the second to last one.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to drink along with the finger thing. So if you heard me gagging in the background, it was not from the gore. It was because, god damn, this fucking sucks. I hate this drink so much.
Now we have to go back and do them all over again.
No!
Order more Malort.
No! Kill me! What are you waiting for? God. Wow, look, it's a warehouse with like an actual ceiling that's way off the ground.
There's depth.
It's so big.
Isn't it bonkers to think just a couple of weeks ago we were complaining about how bad the city looked in Jigsaw in the daylight, and we're seeing the same city, a lot of the same outdoor sets from the last movie. And the daylight scenes work simply through the miracle of fucking color grading.
It's color grading. I think Bousman has a better visual sense maybe than the Spierigs.
Yeah.
If that's not too unfair to say, considering I've only seen like 3 of their movies.
Well, it also feels like we're just getting a lot more of the Saw color palette used this time around, even with them avoiding like the obvious greens and oranges.
I mean, I'm amazed they managed to take something that's clearly supposed to be the middle of summer. They have a 4th of July parade. Everything's kind of got like that sunburn on it. It looks like a sweaty movie. This is a summer movie through and through, which is something I never thought they would have gone for a Saw film. Because I would describe the rest of Saw as clammy and cold and kind of fall.
They might as well be set in October.
Yeah. So it's weird to think, there's a whole city out here. Obviously, this is a different city, I think, than the original Saw. They make a bigger deal out of the Jigsaw killings. But, boy, it just feels in tune with the rest of the movies because of Bousman's editing choices and directing choices, while still being essentially totally new for the series. And it works so much better than Jigsaw. And I'm a defender of Jigsaw. But, yeah, back to back, it's hard to say, no, Jigsaw really pulled those concepts off.
He also does, I think, the opening wide of the world a little bit better because he does a lot of like this close camera work still. A lot of handheld stuff, tilts the camera a lot. But he has like these where they're outside, but he keeps the camera like very close, so he keeps the claustrophobic feeling, but without just feeling like having that normal visual look that the Saw movies kind of got into almost a rut of.
Yeah. And the opening shot is the only time Bousman really goes nuts with the extras either. He still maintains the sparseness of the sets. Which
well, there's some scenes like this one when he's down on the ground and Chris Rock randomly pulled an extra in to play like his wife. Like there's moments where he's kind of involving the rest of the world and making it feel a little bigger than just these 3 or 4 characters, which is something I don't think Jigsaw ever quite pulled off. It felt like it was a very insular world.
No, Jigsaw felt like those were the only people in the whole world.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Bousman, I talked about this in a previous commentary. The first Saw has a very accidental post-apocalyptic feel to it. And Bousman kind of fine-tuned that throughout his movies. And it's really interesting seeing that on full display here. Where, hell, a scene like this, you might as well take place in the Judge Dredd universe.
Yeah.
Now, there's a very heightened reality to all of it.
So, to get to the scene happening right now, it's very funny to me. This guy is just a world famous magician that Bousman's friends with,
with his visible platform 9 3/4 tattoo.
It's a fun cameo, I guess, but it's like, what? Why? The guy's there's nothing wrong with the guy's acting. It's not like that role shouldn't have been that actor, but it's like, why go all the way?
It's just enjoyable that Bousman knows someone like that. Because of course he does. Jamie, tell me. I'm just going to throw out this concept for you. Darren Lynn Bousman directs The Question.
Oh God, his hub city would be so iconic.
So one thing to point out here, we mentioned Chris Rock's star power earlier. I think this is one of the sets where he said, I want to go film the scene somewhere else and just talk to a restaurant owner. And they're like, okay, you can go in there. Followed by this scene in the church where he's like, we're not filming in a church basement. And then just talked to the church owner and got them permission to film a Saw movie inside of an actual church.
Which the producers then gave Bousman a hard time on until they
saw the church, yeah.
Yeah, but it was like, why
did you want
give
it in a
Bousman
basement?
a hard time? Yeah.
Well, I think that comes down to the producers are there to make sure everything stays on time and on budget. So to say, hey, we've got a bigger location that we haven't really scouted out or prepped for. Last second, we're switching to that. In their minds just says, oh, God, we're throwing away a lot of money and time. But then when you see the production value it adds, they rightfully backed off, went, all right, this is pretty cool. This looks a lot better than what we had.
He also got it for free. So, I mean.
True. Well, I mean, they already paid for the church basement.
The basement,
so.
Yeah.
See, the motivation here is so weird to me. This guy's working in the church, and it seems like he's maybe a little reformed from his murdering days, but he's never forgiven this. So it feels like the weird balance of this guy being like, what I did was wrong, but you turned me in, you piece of shit. And it's like,
you don't want to go to jail for it.
Yeah, like, so I murdered a guy. This dick turned me in for murder.
Well, that's actually, to me, for me, as someone who enjoyed the movie.
You can make the argument that it's intentional character hypocrisy, but it's
No, I felt that it was very indicative of kind of like the moral area the film was kind of like highlighting and working in, where he's this character who's running this self-help group as if he's reformed, but he still kind of feels like he's justified, but at the same time is kind of conflicted about it. Like, what I did was wrong. Also, I'd probably do it again.
Yeah, I take responsibility. You piece of shit, you turned me in. It's like, I think if you really got rid of like all your angry feelings and found acceptance, you would go a little further in like accepting that you got turned in for your crimes.
To be fair, that is kind of just what cops are like. Like, no, being a dirty cop is wrong, but at the same time, you don't turn in other cops. That's worse.
Yeah.
I've seen The Wire.
Well, and that kind of leads to maybe a personal standing that I have against the movie. That's why I can't quite get into it. But, the elephant in the room was this was made and released after the murder of George Floyd. So you have something that is now hyper topical. And if you don't perfectly thread your thematics, you're just going to piss off people on every side. And police brutality in America is just not an issue you can really make a statement on and not piss someone off about. So if you think the movie's doing a good job with it, you probably will be a little more into the message. If you think they're kind of exploiting a huge political issue in the country for, a couple of bucks at the theater, then maybe you won't be into what the film's doing. It's more incidental, right? They didn't write the story post George Floyd, but the timing of it makes it feel that way.
Yeah.
If you went into theaters and you didn't know anything about the background of the movie, you'd assume, they saw what was on the news and they wrote a movie to respond to that, which feels very craven.
Yeah, but this is also what horror's for.
I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't explore those themes. I'm just saying, do they do a good job of it? And in my opinion, I'm more on the fence than I think the filmmakers were about their positioning. The fact that Zeke is supposed to be the good cop and he's going to be the force that changes the system from within, it feels icky. But I don't
think there's anything necessarily wrong with that message that, like, the job of police officer is not inherently evil. Just has evil people in it.
I could make some arguments there. I'm much more on like the ACAB side of things, right?
I mean, I'm on the ACAB side of things too, Cody, but I'm just saying the job is innocuous.
I mean, it's mostly a response to violence. Like, hey, something bad already happened. We have to protect property values or now punish. So if you think that is necessarily good the way it currently works, where it's maybe almost a fealty system, Cobb as a job is not exactly something I'm totally for. Granted, the other way to say there shouldn't be cops at all is far out there. How would you make that ever work? There needs to be something to protect order.
I think whenever you're doing any kind of horror that, or any kind of media that deals with policing, a thing you have to wrestle with is how much does this project take place in the world we're living in, and how much of this is taking place in the collective imagination that stories like this typically take place in. I think that's an issue, because I know throughout this series, it's occasionally very problematic ideas about, criminal justice have kind of ran against where I am politically, but there's always, at least where I stand, the saving grace that these movies do take place in a heightened reality. We are very much in 90s cop movie land for the Saw franchise, which doesn't excuse things, doesn't excuse some of the darker, questionable parts of these movies, but I do think that's something to take into consideration.
And I would say this film is fairly anti-cop.
I mean, we do get to see it's very combination of cops being bad, but a lot of it is these are clearly bad guys. These are the bad cops you hear about, and the implication is Chris Rock is one of the good cops, and it's like,
well, really, I mean, he says Boz is one of the good cops, but it turns out Boz is also corrupt, which actually kills Zeke more inside. Zeke is like in a sea of shit. He is the one person who went into the police department with ideals of an idealized version because his father was chief of police and didn't know what his father actually was. And this is like what he's the aberration in a system.
It's
I think that's what's interesting is that it's not that, there's good cops versus bad cops. He's the only good cop. He's like, he shouldn't even be there. And that's kind of what's fucked up.
Right. And I think that's a concept that could... Oh, sorry. This murder is so out of place. It doesn't work at all. It's so frustrating.
Just imagine fake Jigsaw whistling while he's doing it too.
Yeah. They have a kill off screen. It's not even a trap. It's just like a murder, and it's the good character, and they don't even provide a hint why this would be happening to him. It's boy, it's very frustrating. We've already talked about it, so I guess we don't have to go much further than that. A note I have that I'm sad I didn't say before is I should have started this episode out with the joke, everybody hates Chris. Really should have gone with that.
I agree, you should have.
It would have been, it's too late. I mean, we could edit it in, but it's too late. Also, the ruse. It cracks me up in the end when we find out that Shank has faked baby cries and made up a wife. And it sets up a weird thing where it's like, Zeke makes a big deal earlier in the movie that someone has to contact the dead detective's loved ones and give them the news. And he sounds like he should be the one to do it because he's close to them. And yet his partner dies, and he's like, that's not my job.
That was weird.
So apparently no one contacted this fake wife, or they didn't try, or he didn't have a wife listed, so they didn't bother, and he was the only one who knew about the family. It's one of those plot contrivances that's like, why did we do this? Why did we write ourselves into this corner?
You kind of like, nobody... It's one of those things nobody caught, which is unfortunate. You should have caught that.
Well,
somebody should have caught that.
Him going to the effort of like, oh, my baby's crying, and he's got an MP3 can play of a crying baby.
It's something that Hoffman would have done, and it would have made sense there, but in a much more grounded Saw movie, that level of supervillainy is a bit out of character.
Yeah, it was just that was too much.
So there's some fumbling of the bag, I would say, in those parts. Anyways, I'm going to save my breath because it's time for Malort.
Okay, that could be the slogan of this commentary series.
Deutsch angles, I love them.
Also, I have to say...
Fun fact, they only got those because their tripod broke, and they just never bought a new one.
That's a Bousman shoot, all right. And I know Chris Rock has gotten a lot of shit for his performance in this movie. And I have to say, like, there's a lot of places where if I were the director, I absolutely would have pulled him back, especially in the first act where he's going way harder than I think the character needed it to go at that point in the movie.
Yeah, because there's got to be a decline. If you start with him already fucking keyed up, it doesn't register the same.
I'd say from, like, the second act onward, when his level of mania is appropriate for what's going on, I love the Nicolas Cage descent into madness he goes through.
Yeah, I think Rock did pretty good. Some moments, but I think overall, I think he did good. I think maybe people are being a little hyperbolic on the...
I definitely agree with that. Like, if you were to go onto Reddit and look up fucking Spiral views, they talk about this being the worst entry in the series. I'm like, we all saw 7. Shut up. This, I maybe don't love the movie, but I can recognize it is put together much better than a majority of the Saw films.
And I think even if you don't like love it or even just like it, should at least, I don't know, appreciate the fact that it's kind of like doing something.
It's the first movie to do something with the Saw premise since Saw 2. Think about that.
Being at Saw 9 and all of a sudden getting prestige treatment is also fascinating to me. Like, all of a sudden at 9, instead of going to space, they get fucking Chris Rock. Like, that's an about face. Most movies don't go that direction. They normally go, okay, can we put this in video format?
And hey, they didn't get Chris Rock. Chris Rock got them.
That's true, yeah. He hooked those guys. And I think the original plan was they were going to move into a Jigsaw 2. They had concepts they wanted to explore, and they're thinking about making that instead. And they're like, fucking throw it. Actually, sorry, I take that back. I think they're actually going to move into what we got for Saw 10.
Yeah,
I think that was on board. And
yeah, Stahlberg and Goldfinch said they pitched 8 different Saw scripts to Lionsgate, and the one they went forward with was the one that eventually became 10.
So it is a little funny that movie got essentially bumped back by a couple of years. which probably saved it, because if that one came out in May, like 2020, how many people would have seen it?
Yeah. Any movie slotted into that would have not worked.
Also, this is the most awful fucking trap, but I love it.
It's so good. Oh, fuck, I'm supposed to be drinking Malort. God damn it.
Chug.
Oh, I'm so close to finishing this fucking bile.
I think in a perfect world, we have everything. Where we have the Book of Saw series, we have the normal Saw series, and we do something with Jigsaw. Somebody does something with that.
They could even set it up in like a rotation, like, oh, it's a fucking Jigsaw year, and then the next year would be a Book of Spiral year, and then the next one would be Jigsaw year.
Yeah, exactly.
In a perfect world. I mean, I don't think we'd ever get to that point.
No, I wish that's what they were doing.
So they can't afford to have like 3 years between his films.
Give us Jigsaw's Twisted Tales, damn it.
This is where I wanted to go with this, Jamie. Yes. I wanted you to talk about that concept, because it's fascinating to me. And also, I don't have to talk while I drink this goddamn Malort.
Okay, credit where credit is due. I got a lot of this information from a recent episode of Best Movies Never Made, where the hosts were interviewing Jason Jenkins, who has a new book he's releasing soon called Phantom Limbs, where he's got a lot of exclusive information on dozens of unmade horror movies.
Oh, yeah, I gotta pre-order that. I keep forgetting.
I am so excited, because it seems it's all stuff I've never heard about. But this was apparently something that was pitched between, I want to say, this was between Saw 7 and Jigsaw.
To interrupt for 1 second, this is one of the most Hannibal-looking things, I think, in the whole series. Just, we have to peel the wax off of this boiled face.
The peeling. Oh.
I can imagine Hannibal doing that, like he just, like the episode where he has the leg cut off and wrapped in clay that he's baked, and he has to break it open and feed to the guy.
Wasn't that gnarlier in the director's cut? Like the skin came off completely?
That's what he's saying. They had to cut it by frames to get the MPA to go along with it. So there was more flesh coming off. Instead, you kind of get it for a second or two, and they leave the rest of the imagination. That's it. You still get a pretty good peek at it. They didn't really have to throw away the entire gag.
One thing I think is interesting about the MPA stuff is they would have probably been less harsh on this if it wasn't starring Chris Rock and Sam Jackson.
Probably. Well, because they know it's going to have a wider reach, I'd assume. Yeah. So they know, like, oh, okay.
That shows you how fucking broken that system is.
Everyone would agree. I don't think there's anyone on the MPAA side. They're all like, oh, these fuckers.
There's got to be one guy out there. Quartering. He's probably fucking...
So as we're talking about it, boy, it is funny to me that they almost hit, like, the cap for a number of submissions. Because there's a penalty. If you put the movie in, like, 13 times, different changes, they start saying, okay, well, we're going to intentionally delay reviewing your film because we think you're gaming the system by giving us basically identical cuts with like a frame or two off and hoping we'll just say, get out of here. Here's your R. So I wish I could remember the movie. There was a film I was watching recently where they said they were basically the reason this rule exists. It might have been RoboCop, actually. I think it was mentioned in RoboDoc. Mm-hmm. They submitted RoboCop so many times, they eventually made a rule after that film came out. They were like, you can't put this movie in like 50 times. We're going to give you punishments if you just keep sending it to us. There's your connection. RoboCop, Spiral. It's all about how bloody you can dismember a cop.
It's all connected.
It's all part of the spiral, baby. So this guy, I just want to talk about this guy before we get back to Jigsaw's story time. It really feels like this character should have more going on. Because he's a great actor, and he gives off the presence he should almost be the bad guy, but there's not enough red herring evidence for you to think he is.
Yeah. Well, it kind of makes him a good red herring, because they don't do a lot of red herring evidence, which just makes him more suspicious.
And I'd be mad, but it's like, apparently he was just such a good actor, they kind of gave him more stuff to do.
Yeah.
Which is like, yeah, it's too bad they didn't realize that earlier and like weave him into the plot a little more.
Big mask.
Big mask.
Also, Rock pulling up in the car and then running into the church screaming is hysterical to me.
I like to imagine he's double parked in a handicap spot. Anyway, sorry.
God.
We gotta get back to the important thing. Yes. Yeah, Jigsaw.
Yeah, between Saw 3D and Jigsaw, Milton and Dunstan pitched a show to Lionsgate that would have been an anthology horror series hosted by Billy the Puppet. It was going to be called Jigsaw's Twisted Tales. And because, for whatever reason, at this point, Lionsgate was like super locked down on not doing anything with Saw lore, the series had to be out of continuity. So,
which even then, you can make that work. That's fine.
Yeah, the way around it was every episode would be a traditional, like, Tales from the Crypt style murder mystery or monster of the week story with a plot twist. Only their way of doing it was we do it entirely in the Saw style. Like, imagine a werewolf story shot like a Darren Lynn Bousman Saw movie, and at the very end there's a plot twist where Hello Zepp plays as all the clues are laid out. And
which I would love, but also it probably would get gotten old if you're like doing 10 episodes in a season and you have to hear the reveal theme 10 times. I think used maybe slightly more sparingly.
I don't know. I'm so down for this.
I really like the idea, but just hearing Zepp's theme like once every 45 minutes would be like, okay, come on.
It's a variation each time. The season finale is with Marcus.
Klauser could do that. He's been doing it for all of these movies. Why not on a TV basis?
And like the whole idea would be, it would be it would be the Billy puppet telling morality tales to the audience using these stories as stories that are fictional in the Saw universe to tell a little piece of Jigsaw philosophy. Like one of the stories that they had, like they never got to the scripting process, but they did an outline for 12 episodes. And one of the episode premises was a dude rescuing a bunch of children from human traffickers and then finding out that they're vampires who then eat them alive. To teach the audience the Jigsaw lesson that no one should play the hero. Which is such, I love the idea of doing an asshole version of The Storyteller.
Which also shows how like much Stolberg fucking gets it.
They should have sold this concept to EC Comics. They should just be an on-running comic series.
Yes.
What really breaks my heart is they said in order to get it greenlit, we said they were out of continuity, but if this went into production, we would totally do in-universe episodes where we'd examine incidental characters and do epilogues and things like that. And all I could think was, since it's Milton and Dunstan, oh my god, they could have done the original Collector script as the season finale.
Ooh. It's a shame because that's a really fun idea and it got squashed, I'm assuming because they didn't want to have to deal with continuity. And it's like, it's a fucking TV show. Just do its own thing.
They said the official reason Lionsgate caught cold feet was brand dilution. That thing
the once a year thing they did for 7 years.
Suddenly that interests them as brand dilution. Fucking jackasses.
Like, they apparently didn't have that problem when they made the Purge TV show to go along with, like, the 5 Purge movies.
Their thing after Final Chapter really seemed to be just, okay, we have to do the Pause Inc. thing. Like, when Jim Davis pulled all Garfield merchandise off the shelves for 15 years so that there would be a want for it. We have to do that with Saw.
No. So I apologize. I for some reason said Stolberg instead of Milton Dunstan for this.
He was there in spirit.
This was Stolberg.
Oh, with the Jigsaw TV show.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yes.
Too many writers to remember.
Too many. It's very confusing sometimes.
Too many white guys making the Saw films.
I have finished my Malort, so for this scene, I get to drink a delicious coconut rum sold in a tiny plastic bottle.
Thank God.
Thank God. Will these become an important part of mythology later? Who knows? But thank God it's not Malort.
Speaking of TV shows, there was a essentially TV continuation or spinoff of this film that was greenlit at one point when Lionsgate greenlit, like The Continental and a bunch of other shows in 2021. So I think between the performance and a lot of shows that were greenlit in like around 2020 and 2021 just never happened for obvious reasons. So
yeah, it's a bummer, but I think the anthology show is treated like kryptonite from mainstream television, and it's a shame because look, we've had some great examples over the years. I really enjoy what Shudder's been doing on a low budget for Creepshow. We've gotten great shows out of that. And I mean, they're intentionally hokey and all that, but it's fun. I enjoy watching those. Tales from the Crypt, obviously, that's the big one. And everyone, I think all horror fans have dreamed of some sort of continuation of Tales from the Crypt. And the rights for that are just so confusing, it can't happen. So wouldn't it be cool if you could do something along the lines of that with a company that has all the rights and could make it happen and quickly? Plus, yeah, you got a brand new awesome Crypt Keeper everyone loves. You can have Tobin Bell back voicing Billy the Puppet? Fuck yes. Oh my god.
You have Freddy's Nightmares, with an audience that still wants to see Freddy.
It's a shame. That project sounds way out there and had a low chance of ever happening, but it still seems like, boy, wouldn't that be cool?
It would have been such an out there idea for Saw, a series as in desperate need at all times of more creative rejuvenation.
Well, it's hard to find a direction for it because everyone really just wants more Tobin Bell, and you can't easily do that. So it satisfies that need.
I like the idea of just from a brand standpoint of making Saw about something more than the traps outside of the movies. Just spreading the idea of Saw as a feeling and a style, and using like the Billy puppet for more than just basic iconography. Like that who knows, that could have ended up being something that saved the series in the long run.
Yeah, it's a shame to think what could have been. Oh well. One thing to give credit for this movie, the actual topic of discussion, I like how all the traps tie into the actual characters pretty darn well.
Yeah.
So we have. Let's just go through the traps quick, I guess. We have the guy who has to rip out his tongue or die because he's lied on the stand. Perfect. That makes perfect sense. Great through line. We have the guy who pulled the trigger when he shouldn't have, and he's got his fingers ripped off. Great job. You connected that one very soundly in my mind. Makes sense. I guess the boiling wax thing was, I'm going to take your head, like the head of the police, and she's the head of the police.
It was because she covered up everything.
Ah, okay. And that all works. And the head thing too, like the separation, like you have to basically separate your head from your body by pushing down the spike that'll sever your spinal column.
Yeah.
That's my only problem with that trap, is the actual spike that's doing the cutting is a very tough visual.
Yeah, it doesn't quite come through visually.
Yeah, and it's like, how does that make sense? Like, how would the machine know that she's severed her spinal column and stopped the wax? Logistically, that one's a little tough. I mean, it's a world where a lot of weird, tough questions happen. You just kind of accept them. But that one's always been the
same technology that was used in all the traps in Jigsaw.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that one I got kind of shrug at. Luckily, though, the waterboarding aspect of the trap is such a good, strong visual that it overwrites everything else. So that's cool.
Which I don't think we've said yet. Kevin Groidard and David Hackle actually returned just to consult on the traps.
Right, yeah, because there's the idea this needs to be in line with a Jigsaw trap, but it has to have its own distinct visual identity. From a production design, you should be able to tell this was made by a totally unrelated person who was maybe inspired by Jigsaw. So we do get a much different visual sign-off on all of these traps. So I would say they succeeded in that measure. They don't feel necessarily like something Jigsaw would do, but if he did, I wouldn't be like, hey, that shouldn't be part of the canon. What the fuck? Oh no, we're missing the big reveal.
Which is funny, considering it got to the point where some of Jigsaw's traps didn't feel like things Jigsaw would do.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's supposed to be, one of his, 8 different apprentices that have been running around. I make fun of I exaggerate, right? Because we had Gordon, I guess, in the background helping. I don't know how many traps he's ever supposed to have been implied that he did on his own. Probably none. Amanda, but she was under the guidance of Jigsaw, so they should feel pretty similar. Hoffman really half the time should feel like he's experimenting and doing his own thing.
Yeah.
And then I guess we found out that Logan was out there, but how many traps he was doing during Saw? Probably none. I think he's supposed to be deployed at that point.
Yeah, the only traps we see Logan do are the ones he recreated. The only one that would have been flat out him is the laser trap at the end.
Yeah, because that goes along with his profession, because they had a laser cutter for the corpses. The laser was probably a step too far. I get that it was supposed to do a big stamp of personality on the movie, but it's also maybe a little more sci-fi than we're expecting. It removes it from the gritty realm of possibility that was the MO of Saw. That's why I think of it as the Saw goes to space moment.
So I just want to talk for just a moment on the moment that this movie's editing bites it in the ass the most. The previous trap is over. Rock just kind of walks around for a moment and then walks into this room and the end of the movie happens.
Yeah, it's just, oh, hey, I've been waiting for you.
Yeah, it feels like a little bit incomplete. Yeah.
It feels like there was 10 minutes between those 2 points. Like a chunk of the movie happened, and then we're suddenly just in the finale.
And then getting the flashbacks to some of those traps, like Buzz lying on the stand. You covered that pretty well. I think we actually understood that point where you don't even need to flash back to it. The spiral. This is the True Detective moment of the film where it's like, hey, let's go back and connect to those previous films. Let's explain the iconography.
But I like this from the concept of what they're doing of people being inspired by Jigsaw and kind of taking that teaching but altering it to whatever is in their fucked up psychosis.
That's been kind of a running theme for Saw, and I think this probably does a better job of it than most of the other entries. Going back to the idea of apprentices, this one actually kind of sells acolytes more so than apprentice.
Yeah.
That's something interesting I saw Stahlberg say in an interview, that the whole reasoning behind their approach to this movie was, okay, we've seen how Jigsaw's philosophy is twisted by those in his presence. What happens after Jigsaw's long dead and just the idea of what he believed in gets retrofitted to some other weird philosophy that would take you to the same place?
And it creates an interesting series for Saw. I would like to see them go down the idea of all these serial killer villain characters popping up, being, as Cody said, acolytes of Jigsaw, but they're all heroes in their own story.
Mm.
To them, they are the paragon. Well, that's something that's very unique to Saw.
Well, there's the old saying, right? Everyone's the hero of their own story. So even someone like Hoffman doesn't think he's a bad guy. He's taking care of crime in his own way.
Yeah.
And then just kind of thinks some of the murders are a little fun on the side, I guess. Logan's whole thing was, I speak for the dead, which, maybe a little over the top, but it was, hey, I think these people are evil and I'm getting back at them. So the series has always done a good job, I think, of expressing the fact that these guys don't see themselves as villains.
Yeah.
They unfortunately get to the point where they're acting so cartoonishly evil often that you got to shake your head they've gone past the point of credibility on characterization. I like that they're doing the Clue thing, 2 + 1 + 1 + 2.
But that's what I would like Saw to lean into and say, no, that's kind of our identity, is these twisted morality villains.
That should be it. It really should. That's the bread and butter of the series. I would say there's a couple hallmarks of Saw, right? We have the voyeurism. We have the morality play. The morality's got to be front and center. Even if a person's hypocritical, they have to be judging others and forcing them to atone and learn in their mind through physical pain. And maybe that's one of the issues I have with this this entry is that the guy who's supposed to be atoning or learning, one isn't really atoning. He's supposed to be learning, and it's through psychological torment rather than physical. The only time he does get cut was the glass trap, which he is told, hey, just stay out of it. This is your chance to just sit back. You don't have to get involved.
Yeah, the Shank is under the impression Zeke is just going to walk away.
Yeah. He's still testing him, but he's kind of on maybe a more optimistic route than Kramer. To go back to the glass trap, I've been very disappointed that when he pulls the bit of glass out, it's like one from his arm. Wouldn't it have been really cool if they did it like one of the pieces in his face? He had to pull out like a chunk of glass from his fucking cheek, like Evil Dead remake style. That'd been more effective to me. That was one of my like, oh guys, you were so close.
But then he wouldn't have to have the gnarly makeup of glass sticking out of his face, though, which is pretty cool.
I think if I were in this situation, if I'm doing the Chris Rock, if I was in a Saw trap, I would immediately take the ones out of my face, or otherwise, every time I scratch my cheek, I'm going to be hitting that glass, and that's going to hurt.
Hitting that glass.
Hitting that glass. Sorry, I cut you off, Jamie. What were you going to say?
Adding on to what you were saying, Cody, I actually think that's one of the things that kind of adds to the tragedy of this ending, and that does give it the punch that it does, even with its flaws. There's something very sad about the idea that Zeke, who we've seen be very... we've seen do the right thing on paper, but be very personally immoral. We've seen him do things that do not line up to anyone's idea of what a good person should be. But to the Jigsaw killer, he is a paragon, because he's met his standards on a handful of levels. Like he stood up to police corruption. It doesn't matter that we've also seen him do arguably corrupt things in this movie. He stood up against a dirty cop. So by Shank's standards, that makes him a paragon. Like, in a world where there are no true heroes and there are no true ideals, I kind of think that's kind of the punchline of Spiral. Congratulations, Zeke. You're a hero to Jigsaw.
One thing that's confused me about this trap is Shank gives the option of, you can kill me, or you can shoot this target that will save your dad. And then he's also going to get killed in a couple of seconds, no matter what. So, obviously that last part's hidden, but like the target or killing me thing feels weird. I would have simplified and just been like, hey, you can shoot your dad or you can shoot me. That's your test. I want to see if he can trust you. Your dad's a bad cop. And then his fail-safe Jigsaw move would have been when he shoots the target and knocks down the trap is like his ingenious, haha, I can get best of all worlds. This is the backup.
Well, really, no unlike Jigsaw, I don't think any of his victims are supposed to actually escape.
Yeah, I didn't get that impression from any of them.
I've never gotten that for any of them. They're supposed to go through something and then still die, and it's supposed to be the message afterwards that people find. So, yeah, he was always going to fucking die.
Well, I know, no matter what, I know Samuel Jackson's a goner in this one, but presenting that as the option to Chris Rock is, hey, you can either save your dad, who you've already told me you want to live, or you can kill me. But it's weird because he says, I want to trust you. And so it feels like his trap should have a component to the audience to let them know, like, hey, I'm giving you a choice. If you take this option, then I know I can trust you, which would be killing your dad. Obviously, Chris Rock wouldn't do that because he wants his dad to live. He doesn't want to shoot this guy for whatever other reason he's got set up. I don't know why he didn't just shoot him. Oh, no! In slow motion. That doesn't quite work.
No, I mean, I'm a fan I'm a fan of this marionette thing.
The marionette's fine. I just think the presentation of how we get there is a little funky. The shooting the target thing never really felt as a great Jigsaw finale for me. Like, you can shoot the target, you can shoot me. I don't like those as the options he gives. It doesn't feel like the right morality to drill things home.
Quick, everyone take a number 2 with your rifle.
Number 2 with your rifle. The morality makes sense in the end, where it's like, hey, no matter what, your dad was going to pull up with a gun and get shot down by the cops. A little bit of poetic justice there. That all checks out. The visual is great of the marionette thing. I just don't like the route we took to get to the ending. Also,
once again,
they should have let this breathe for a second.
I'm fascinated by the fact that finale went on forever when they shot it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they went up to the roof and then went back down and shit.
So I would say, too, like, going immediately into the 21 Savage song after seeing Samuel L. Jackson die doesn't work for me. Like, they needed a breather moment.
Yeah, and then score.
Score would have been good. I get they were really heavy on this song. They wanted to use this as their main promotional tool.
It was in the trailer.
21 Savage was supposed to debut this song, I think, live at Coachella or something. Before
that was a tie-in.
So they were gung-ho about this fucking song, which is another weird thing where it makes us feel so out of place in the Saw universe where they have needle drops. I get they're doing it for something different, but it feels very weird to me as someone who's settled into Saw over 8 movies.
Really
I like the needle drops in the film, but the same thing, like all of the needle drops of the credits of all the Saw movies are inappropriate and should not be there.
What really fucks me up is that Jackson is listening to this song in his apartment whenever Chris Rock enters, meaning that this isn't an in-universe song about the Jigsaw killer.
He was also inspired by Jigsaw.
That means the Saw theme exists in universe.
It would have worked so much better if it just credits and with just the Saw theme playing, and then when the actual scroll starts, then start playing the song. But
I agree, 100%. I don't have a problem with the concept of this song.
Yeah.
It just in a theater, it plays very weird, where you're supposed to hit this emotional beat, and then it goes into, hey, woo, music, yeah, here's our number 1 hit single.
No, it's like the theatrical cut of the first Saw. Game over, and then a butt rock song plays. And like, what is happening?
There's kind of a science to when it works. I think one of the better needle drops, oddly enough, The Prestige, where it goes into a Tom York song as soon as like you get those end credits.
Yeah.
That really works, like, because it's kind of the right mood. And it's a song that you'd be like, oh, this is never going to be a single. This is not designed for radio play. I love that fucking song, but it's like, okay, this fits the movie more so than we needed to sell soundtracks.
I know, Cody, you know what you have to do.
Please don't read all of the genius off to the side annotations. We don't need to be here for 40 minutes.
But I want to know what they mean.
No, we're not doing that.
We know what he meant by taking a number 2 with his rifle. That's all we came for.
But what about my hood known for wildin'? I don't promote the violence. But he's talking about having a gun with him in the toilet. That's contradictory. Anyway, so we are reading the lyrics to the song Spiral by 21 Savage. Track 1 on Spiral from the Book of Saw soundtrack.
You don't know me, but I know you. I want to play a game.
Everything I do, I be 10 steps ahead. 10. My youngin' got them bodies, he still piss in the bed. Spend. Keep the code of silence, don't repeat what I said. 21. Keep all the baloney, I just came for the bread. On God. My hood known for wildin', and I don't promote the violence. I done been through all the trials and tribulations, now I'm smiling. 21. Say he wanted smoke, we at the table doing the plotting? There are no G's on any of these. I want to emphasize they've specifically omitted the G's from the doing, the plotting, all of these. We gun slide, wet your shit up, make it home before you hear a siren. Big facts. Chorus, I'ma let him spin like a spiral, straight up. I don't got no love or no rival, straight up. Put him on the news, he went viral, pussy. I took a number 2 with my rifle. Pussy. Every car I'm in, I got the title. On God. Slaughter Gang. I turn a model to a hiker. Big facts. I know they want me dead. I got a Caltech in this Viper. 21. I hit all the vibes on the low cause I'm the sniper. 21. Verse 2. He don't want no problems and it's obvious. Call me Saw cause I laugh when I body shit. On God. We play hot potato with the ops. We be dropping shit. 21. Giving out free smoke cause we got a lot of it. 21. Trying to feed the fam. I was trapping in the cold. 21. Dropped a mixtape, turned around, I was on the road. On God. You can't give me no amount of money for my soul. 21. He wasn't really no robber. He got killed because it wasn't his role. Facts. Mac 90 poking out my... Goyard? Diamondback poking out my Louis 5. Oh boy, we got an N-word here. I don't think I'm in the right spot to say that. Fuck your Glock. We shoot big chops, big sticks. 7.8, 308, and 223s. 21. Horace, I'ma let him spin like a spiral. 21. I don't got no love for no rival. Pussy. Put him on the news. He went viral. Pussy. I took a number 2 with my rifle. 21. Every car I'm in, I got the title. Straight up. Slaughter Gang. I turn a model to a hiker. Straight up. I know they want me dead. I got a Caltech in this Viper. Straight up. I hit all the vibes on the low cause I'm a sniper. Straight up. Verse 3. I make sure the beef got Swiss cheese. 21. I'm from the 20 East where they killin' thieves. Big facts. Stones got my ears feeling like Christmas Eve. Big facts. Before you bend over, baby, get on your knees. Big facts. Drive by, jump out, then we tie-dye. 21. Oh boy, we got more N-words here, and I am too white to even do this without being canceled. She fried, she fucked the gang. We call her Five Guys. I'm so high I almost thought I skydived. I'ma let him spin like a spiral. Straight up. I don't got no love for no rival. Straight up. Put him on the news. He went viral. Pussy. I took a number 2 with my rifle. Pussy. Every car I'm in, I got the title. On God. Slaughter Gang. I turn a model to a hiker. Big facts. I know they want me dead. I got a Caltech in this Viper. 21. I hit all the vibes on the low cause I'm a sniper. 21. What does turn a model to a hiker mean? I'm sorry, I have to go to the... Okay. The annotation. Slaughter Gang label is a label that released songs from Post Malone and Travis Scott. They have released 21 Savage song A Lot featuring J. Cole, the song that earned them a Grammy for Best Rap Song. This doesn't explain what a hiker has to do with this.
I believe hiker is a colloquialism for sex worker, Cody.
So he makes a model into a sex worker.
Someone please crib Cody just saying pussy and make that like a ringtone.
Pussy.
Every time someone texts me, just pussy.
Pussy. Was this an elaborate trick to get me to say the N-word?
No, actually.
Shockingly, no.
I ran face first into that first one. I was like in reading the cards mode. And I was like, oh no!
What did that song have to do with the film Spiral? Was that song related to the film Spiral in any way? Or
I'm looking up Spiral from the Book of Saw soundtrack. Weird. I clicked the link to the Spiral soundtrack and it just takes me back to Spiral the song.
That's the Spiral.
So it's a spiral.
According to 21 Savage via Apple Music, that video is the craziest shit I ever did in my life. Craziest video I ever did. Blood rushing to my head. I'm hanging upside down. Like, man, I was like, hurry up, let me down. The animal meat was fake, though.
Okay, then.
Now I need to go watch the video. What? There was animal meat in it?
So, Mike, I was going to say this during the commentary, but realized that no one in the audience would get this. But this isn't... Spiral is an extremely rebuilding the body of Christ movie, isn't it?
We really, really, really need to show Cody that movie.
The Spiral from the Book of Saw soundtrack has 4 songs. It's 13 minutes long. It's Spiral, You Ain't Hard by Young Nudie, Down Bad by Real Recognize Rio, 21 Lil Harold, SG Tip, Millie Golightly, and featuring Millie Golightly, and Emergency featuring Gunna and Young Thug. That's
Young
it.
Thug.
That's wild. Thung. My tongue is sore.
Yes, Young Thug.
Why the hell is there a soundtrack with 4 songs? That's like a single.
An EP.
Yeah. It's listed as an EP on Apple Music, at least. That's fucking wild.
Why didn't Saw 10 get that?
Why did they put so much money into making 21 Savage for a song, and they only had 3 to go with it? They couldn't do anything else?
Lionsgate is very cheap.
I want it the other way around. I want to go back to like the 90s, where there is an old school hip hop song that explains the entire plot of Spiral. I'm going to stand by that for every movie I watch now.
Always.
That's why I loved Retaliators so much.
Exactly. Anyway, Cody, tell the fine people at home where they could find us.
Are we still recording? I thought you were going home. Jesus. You can find more of Box Office Pulp on boxofficepulp.com. We are on iTunes. We're on Google Music. If you look up Box Office Pulp, it's probably us. I don't think anyone else has used that name, surprisingly enough. So check us out. Leave us some reviews. Please be nice about my singing voice. Next up, I'm going to do Rocket Man. Yes. He's a Rocket Man. But anyways, if you want more movie commentaries, we have a ton of them. You can check those out. Obviously, we have all the other Saw movies, and we will be doing at least Saw 10, maybe 11 whenever that comes out. So keep checking us out. Stick with us. Unless you hated this, in which case, forget we ever existed, because you'll hurt my feelings if you say bad things about me on the internet.
You can yell at me, though.
That's fine.
It's the only way I'll learn.
To quote 21 Savage, keep the code of silence. Don't repeat what I said. 21.
Pussy.
Anyways, folks, that's a wrap. Get the hell out of here before I have to say that chorus one more time. I will, in fact, let them spin like a spiral if you make me.
You get more out of life when you go out to a movie.
What does that mean? Let them spin like a spiral. There's annotation. The spiral is a common sign of Jigsaw. Yeah, that checks out. Being used all throughout the series, including the movie Spiral, which the song is made for. Here's a spiral from Saw 6, and then they have the carousel trap.
But they used one for a movie that wasn't Spiral for the...
Yeah, that's...
I'm turning the recorder off. Fuck you. Fuck everything. I'm mad now.
Someone really needs to tell Chris Rock that there is a sequel to Forrest Gump.
Goes to space.
Please remember to replace the speaker on the post when you leave the theater.
This here show is brought to you by Zencastr. The all-in-one solution for podcasting that's easy is logging in and hitting record. With Zencastr, you get studio-quality sound up to 4K video right from your browser. No more worrying about unstable connections thanks to Zencastr's multi-layered backups that ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality. But that's not all. Zencastr's post-production process makes you sound like a pro. It automatically removes those pesky ums and ahs and even those awkward pauses in conversation. If only it could remove those from my love life. But gone are the days of needing a bunch of different tools and services to create a podcast. Zencastr's complete platform lets you create, edit, and distribute your podcast all in one place, allowing you to easily publish to Spotify, Apple, and all other major destinations. So why wait? Start your podcasting journey with Zencastr today and experience the Zen of podcasting. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code BOXOFFICEPULP, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.